Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. Thank you everyone for coming today. أهلا وسهلا بحضراتكم كلكم. شكرا لوجودكم معنا. In this panel discussion, we have Dr. Lakeisha and Mr. Randa. I'm very thankful to have you here. And it's my job and my duty to give you tough questions, so be ready and prepared. That's what you want, right? Exactly. Dr. Lakeisha, I will start with you. It is a question about yesterday's presentation, which is something that is really great that you want to do throughout this year. You want to focus more on the global aspect of career development in different countries. So I have a question. How, after you visit Egypt now, or 3 days almost, how would you think NCDA would empower its members in the Arab countries and communities? What ideas that you have in your mind, even if it's not solid, if you want to hear about it?
Sure, great question, and thank you all for having me here. Thank you so much to Ahmad for inviting me to come. So my theme as president of the National Career Development Association is all about global careers. Part of that is because Ahmad and the global committee that we have with NCDA has really done a great job with informing the NCDA board and practitioners that other countries need support in best practices for career development. So I just visited Canada last month, and they also said we really look to the career practitioners in America to help us formulate our career development. So the first thing I think that's important is the training. So in many of our countries, including the United States, career development is still not fully embedded into our government or into our school systems. And that's the same in the United States. So the more all of us get trained and the more we all use the same language globally about career development, career exploration, assessments, career interventions, career decision making, the more we can then go to our governments, our colleges, in America it's the K through 12 or the elementary and middle and high school, and say this needs to be embedded in. This needs to be a part of people's experiences. We need to have centers that people can go to when they're unemployed. So even in America, we find that people lose their jobs and don't know where to go. They don't know people like us exist. So one of my goals, and as I listen to Ahmad and our Canadian friends, our friends in Taiwan, is that we realize that we have to learn from each other. And we as career professionals have to invest in experiences like this, where we come, share ideas, and get training. The next step are the credentials. And I think this is what I've heard from many of you here today, and many who have called me, and we want to be certified. We want to be master trainers so that we really can spread the training of the facilitating career development around the world. And NCDA is committed to converting that training to other languages, because we recognize that the language has to change and it has to be culturally appropriate. So that's one of the things we've also committed to. So the Arabic translation is actually about the second or third translation for us. So that's one of the things. The last thing is to have opportunities for all of us to come together. The speaker talked about the Global Careers Day. NCDA participated in that. I hope you all this year participate in Global Careers Day. The beauty of it for me is to see professionals like us in every country around the world making our work known, making sure that people know what we do, appreciate what we do, and that they look to me and they look to you as the expert. So that's my goal.
دكتورة لكيشة بتتكلم عن انها يعني في بداية مرحلتها الرئاسية في NCDA تطرق يعني واجهت بعض المواقف اللي فعلا خلتها تركز على اللي هو الاشياء المنظور العالمي للمنظمة عندهم، وكانت تتكلم عن مساعدات المصطفى برضه في لجنة العلاقات الدولية فتح لها بعض الامور بعض المجالات اللي خلاها تستوعب انه فعلا في احتياج انه NCDA يعني احتياج العالمي NCDA تحتاج تركز له في فرص ايضا عالميه من NCDA ممكن تطلع لها. وبرضه دكتور لكيشة قالت انها ايضا راحت كندا وجلست في كندا هناك، وايضا شافت انه في رغبه من دول اخرى انها فعلا يكون تحصل على دعم او سبورت من الان سي دي اي، وتكلمت برضو عن انه نحن كلنا مع بعض نحتاج نتشارك ونتعاون عشان، وقالت نقطه جدا مهمه انه حتى في الولايات المتحده الامريكيه الكارير ديفلوبمنت والتطوير المهني معه ايضا في التعليم نفسه، يعني لسه ما تم التطرق للتعليم 100%، وتقول احنا نحتاج ان احنا عالميا نوحد الجهود مع بعض ونتعاون مع بعض عشان حتى ممكن يكون تاثير التطوير المهني موجود في المدارس وفي التعليم، وتساعد الحكومات ايضا انها تدخل في مختلف الناس. وذكرت انه الترجمه العربيه للمنهج هي ثاني او ثالث لغه، وانهم شغالين على هذا الشيء وبيعدلوا المناهج ايضا، مو بس كل لغويه، حتى ايضا تكون مناسبه للثقافه اللي نحن نشتغل فيها في الوطن العربي. But I'm curious, Dr. Lakeisha, what other languages that you finished translating before Arabic?
And this one was before. I want to say we may have a Chinese version. So what we did with that one is we allowed the trainers in the area to do their own translation with our support. The difference is with the Arabic translation, we're hiring the interpreters, but NCBA will own it so that anyone can use it. So in the first time we did the translation, only the instructors who worked with us are using it, but this time anybody who wants to be trained and then share the curriculum will be able to use it.
سألت عن اللغة الثانية اللي ترجموها، فقالت اللغة الصينية، لكن هي كانت عبارة عن ترجمة من المدربين اللي هناك موجودين في الصين بدعم من عندهم، لكن الترجمة العربية هي الترجمة اللي بالنسبة لهم تكون وظفوا بعض المترجمين اللي يترجموا له، وهم يكونوا يملكوا المحتوى ويملكوا المادة التعليمية باللغة العربية بالنسبة للصين. Dr. Lakeisha, question about your impression about your visit in Egypt. As you visit Canada, you might get some ideas or insight about the Canadian needs for development. And when you visit Egypt now, do you think there are some similarities between the two countries? And what are the similarities and what are the differences between these two countries?
Great question. So one of my passions is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So if you know a lot about the Western world, there are a lot of inequalities. And a lot of those inequalities are either based on skin color or based on economic status. So in America, a lot of it is based on if you're black or white or immigration status. And in Canada, what I found is there's a lot of work to fix what happened with the indigenous population. So if you know the history of it, Americans or those who came over and conquered America and Canada say they found it, but there were people already there, okay? So in Canada, they are doing some really great work to reestablish indigenous populations, to honor their culture, to make sure that they have access to careers that they want to help their cultures. America is not as advanced in that yet. We're just starting to get to a place where we're trying to rectify the Native Americans and the indigenous populations that were impacted. Here, as I went out, I took a horse-drawn carriage yesterday, and here I hear a lot of talk between Nubian and Egyptian. I was told that the Nubian housing looks different from the Egyptian housing. I think I was told that Nubians are all brown skin and Egyptians might be different colors. So it seems like wherever you go around the world, there's some differences in culture in our countries that may provide access to different people. And we're all trying to fix that. Now, the one thing that I can say I felt here is that there's an acceptance, I guess, that has grown over the years, where even religion-wise here, it seems like there's now, to me, a peace. So I was told that there were Muslims and there were Christians here, and it seemed that everyone is sort of working together side by side. So I would say that MENA region in some areas here in Aswan are further along with that than we are in the United States. And in Canada, where differences still prevent some people from access to jobs, from access to how much you make. In America, as a woman, if I have the same job as a white man, they pay the white man more, okay? In America, when COVID happened, most of the women had to leave their jobs to take care of the children. I was fortunate because I worked from home, but right now a lot of women in America struggle to get back to work because it was so disruptive and it was a transition. So same issues, same challenges wherever we go around the world, but we're all sort of in different places of advancement. So what I see is with the religion, I think Egypt is a little further along than the Western world.
Thank you, Dr. Lakeisha. Dr. Lakeisha سألتها عن هي زارت كندا زارت دول متعددة وزارت هنا مصر، سألتها عن انطباعها عن الاختلافات والفروقات بين الدولتين وبين الدول، فذكرت إنه في شيء كان مشترك بينهم بين الدول حتى الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، إنه في سكان أصليين للمكان في مثلا في كندا، وفي أشخاص اللي هم خلينا نقول أخذوا هذه الدول أو قالتها احتلوها أو مع ذلك، وفي سكان أصليين لها وهم يدعون أن هذه هي دولتهم الأصلية، وهذا شيء برضه موجود في كندا وموجود أيضا في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، فتقول إنه السكان الأصليين للدول هذه نوعا ما منظومة حقوقهم، هم عندهم نفس الوصول أو نفس يعني الفرص اللي موجودة للأشخاص اللي هم ما هم سكان أصليين، وبالتالي هذه المشاكل اللي هم يواجهوها ويتكلمون. هي قالت هنا أيضا أنها وجدت في فروقات ما بين المصريين وبين النوبيين، لكن وجدت إنه هنا في مصر في تقبل أكثر، وجدت إنه في قبول أكثر بين الأشخاص الموجودين، وجدت أيضا إنه مو بس إنه بين النوبيين والمصريين، حتى بين أيضا مختلف الديانات، أنا عرفت إنه في مسلمين وفي مسيحيين، وجدت إنه في قبول فيما بينهم مع ذلك، كانت في اختلافات ثقافية موجودة في كل منطقة من المناطق، لكن مستوى الوصول قد يكون مختلف من فئة إلى أخرى ومن دولة إلى أخرى. وتكلمت أيضا عن يعني المرأة في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، وإنه قالت إنه هنا الآن امرأة من أصول أفريقية، لكن لو إنها تشتغل في وظيفة يعني الرجل الأبيض هو من يشتغل فيها ياخذ مرتب أعلى أو راتب أعلى، ففي كثير من عدم المساواة، كثير من عدم هذا، فهذه التحديات موجودة في جميع دول العالم، وهذا كلام دكتور لكيشا. Randa, maybe same question but different context. You have worked with I will say it in Arabic. أنت اشتغلتي برضه مع فئات مختلفة؟ أنت اشتغلتي مع فئات مختلفة ومع أشخاص مختلفين أكيد يعني، وأنت تعاملتي مع السعوديين يعني بالذات أنا يعني حالة صعبة بالنسبة لك، لكن يعني أبغاك تعطينا بعض الاختلافات اللي وجدتيها بين الحالات، مو شرط بين اختلاف الجنسيات، يعني الحالات المختلفة اللي مرت عليك في أثناء الطب المهني واللي أنت ساعدتيهم، ولو حابة تفصل فيها ممكن تفصل.
أولاً هو الأساس دايماً إن النفس البشرية دايماً هي واحدة مهما اختلف المكان أو الزمان، التركيبة نفسها بتاعت النفس البشرية هي والمشاكل اللي احنا قابلناها في الحالات أو مع الناس اللي اشتغلنا معاها هي متكررة بشكل كبير، والتأثيرات السلبية بتاعت المجتمع ليها الجزء الأكبر في التأثير على النفس البشرية بتاعت الناس اللي احنا اشتغلنا معاها. مثلا لو بنتكلم على الفئة العمرية بداية السن أو يعني بداية الشباب في مرحلة السعي أو البحث عن وظيفة، هي نفس المشاكل دايما موجودة. هي طيب اختلاف النوع ذكر وأنثى تمام، برضه الفرق ما بينهم واختلاف منظور المجتمع والثقافة للراجل والست تمام، ده فرق كبير، وده مؤثر في جزئية ازاي ان كل شخص يقدر يطور من نفسه او يلاقي نفسه. فأيوه في تشابه في الأساس، ولكن الاختلاف ما زال قائم، وللأسف موجود بنسب أكبر في المجتمعات اللي ما بتلقاش مستوى اقتصادي أو مستوى اجتماعي كريم أو مقبول، وبالتالي صعب على الحالات دي أو صعب على الأشخاص دي إن هم يطوروا من نفسهم. وزي ما كان قال مهندس أحمد، للأسف كل الناس بقى منتظرة إن ناس تانية تساعدهم تمام، ما بيبدأوش بنفسهم، وبالتالي هي وظيفتنا اتخلقت منها. من ضمن التشابهات اللي موجودة فكرة إن الوظيفة نفسها مؤثرة جدا على نوع تفكير في المجتمعات العربية. يعني في وظائف معينة لا ما ينفعش إن الراجل يشتغلها، وده نظرا لأن في مجتمعات تحديدا بتشوف ان بعض الوظائف هي وظائف مهمه. هو عمل، هو اكل عيش، هو لقمه العيش. ده برضه مقرر في الدول العربيه عندنا كلها لو احنا هنتكلم بتركيز اكتر على الدول بتاعتنا. في حين مثلا ان في وظائف ثانيه بتبص ليها برضه نظره دونيه للسيده او للست انها تشتغلها، وده برضه ليه تاثير سلبي على الشخص نفسه، على الست او الراجل في تعامله مع الاخرين. فنرجع نقول ان التشابه ايوه موجود، ولكن ده في الاساس وفي الركيزه الاساسيه للنفس البشريه والمعادله والتكوين والمركبات، ولكن الاختلافات موجوده والنسب وتتفاوت النسب باختلاف الوقت وباختلاف المكان.
I asked Ms. Randa about her experience throughout her experience when she faced different cases and different clients, the differences and similarities, and she did a great job. I cannot translate everything that she said, but they said every person is unique, and they face some difficulties culturally, and also some people may think that some jobs are for women only and some jobs are for men only. So some differences, some challenges, different challenges for different cases, and that was like a bad summary for what she said. Ms. Randa, question, I want to ask her about the different nationalities that she was exposed to when she faced or when she wanted to help different people into development. مين الجنسيات اللي انت تعاملتي معها اثناء عملك في التطوير المهني اللي مريتي عليه؟ بصير كذا سؤال.
Out of the box.
يعني السعوديه كان واحد مصريين اكيد ومين كان؟
اشتغلت او قابلت ناس في المجال، حالات يعني من البحرين، من الكويت، من السعوديه، من مصر طبعا هو اللي كان الجزء الاكبر او الرقم الاكبر بسبب ان انا عايشه في مصر. لا شفت اتعاملت مع ناس كتير من دول في المنطقه.
Thank you. Dr. Lakeisha, I have a question because a lot of people here thinks or believe, and I might agree with them, is that the role of the communities, sub-communities, where they have the support and the environment, even the emotional support that they might get from these communities. Would NCDA consider creating some communities to support their members globally?
Great question. So we actually just had a board meeting last week, and I have done some research. So I have commissioned a task force to take everything that Ahmad and his committee have brought to us to figure out the best way to launch some sort of affiliate or ambassador type of program. We've decided at this time not to move forward with the ambassador program, but I have submitted a proposal to the board. And what they've decided to do is that this summer at our conference in Chicago, we're going to present it to all of our, we call them our past presidents, sort of our brain trust, and get their feedback on what the global outreach of NCDA should look like. I'm going to develop a report, and then this fall, we're up for our strategic planning year, so every 3 years. So as I go out and the new president comes in, she will take us through strategic planning. They have said that they will accept my proposal. So I can't share what my proposal was. I know Ahmed will be happy with it. It's not exactly what he presented to us, but it is going to work to provide affiliation to NCDA through any region, country, or even a city. So I am pretty sure that they will accept. They may tweak what I gave them, but this fall, the board will officially create a strategic goal around our international outreach and support and launch it. So it's taken longer than we wanted it. My main thing is I wanted something that was supported and would last. I didn't want to say yes to something and then the president behind me comes and takes it away. I wanted to make sure that it is something that will last. And like you said, we're here this month in May. We'll be in Saudi Arabia and in Taiwan. A delegation is going to Saudi Arabia with our facilitating career development curriculum. Then a delegation is going to Taiwan where they want us to meet with the government with them. So we're committed.
That's good. A follow-up question, but it might be a person for you. I want to know, did the community or environment play a role in your life that supported you and made you the president of NCDA? If you can share some insight about that.
Yes, so in the United States, we call it social capital. So when you're talking to your students or clients about networking, maybe, I heard you talk a little bit about informational interviews and things like that. Well, our profession in the US works the same way. It's really based on getting out there and networking. So I started off in Higher Education Career Center. I've worked in 3 different career centers. I'm now the director of a career center. And I was fortunate enough to join in my state of Maryland, the Maryland Career Development Association. And somehow I became president of the Maryland Career Development Association. I met people who were doing this work in higher education, workforce development, which is sort of our government arm of career services, private practice, and education, or K-12. And it just opened up my eyes and it gave me so many contacts. And in Maryland, we're fortunate to have people who are doing some of the research, development, some of the assessments for career development. So I was really nurtured and built my network in an environment with a very dedicated career folks. That then opened up the door for me to serve, and I call it service, giving back. I didn't just take from, it was really about giving back to our industry on the national level. And I became the committee chair, like Ahmad, but of the National Career Development Month Committee. That's how I started on the national level, and I mean, this was probably 10 years ago. And from there, I met more people, got involved, and say, where can I help in this industry? And I ran for the board. And I found myself as trustee of higher education on the board. And it's interesting because as a woman and as a black woman in America, I had never planned to run for president of the board. And my colleague said, Lakeisha, you're dedicated, please run. And credentialed, you know, as well. And I ran for president and my peers elected me. So that's really how I got involved. So what we're doing here today, the network, so important to stay in touch. I'm on LinkedIn. Many of you have found me on LinkedIn. Please do and stay connected. And if you come to the US and come to our conferences, we were just talking about this, find me so I can introduce you. I have a global network now. I have a global network of people who are doing this work. So that's what's important, but I also want to say this. Ask Ahmad, what can I do to help? How can I get involved so that the next country you all go to, it's bigger, right? We can make this bigger, this conference. So that's where it started for me, by saying, where can I help in this industry? And I encourage everyone here to do that and say, next year, not only will I come, but how can I help?
Thank you, Dr. Lakeisha. أنا سألت دكتور لكيشة عن دور NCDA اللي تلعبوا في خلق المجتمعات اللي تساعد اللي هم المرشدين المهنيين والمتخصصين في الإرشاد المهني، وهي تفضلت وقالت أنها عملت مقترح بروبوزل لمجلس الإدارة في أشياء معينة ومحددة، في بعض الأشياء توافق عليها، في بعض الأشياء لسه لا زالت تحت النقاش وما توافق عليها، لكن هي حطت مقترحها وتقول إن شاء الله المقترح بيعجب الأستاذ أحمد بناء على اللي هو كان يطلب منه، وإن شاء الله في المؤتمر بيكون في شيكاغو من ماي، بيكون في شهر ماي في شيكاغو، بيكون أيضا يعني تكمل الحديث هذا والحوار بإذن الله. سألتها بعدين عن دورها الشخصي في موضوع هي كيف المجتمعات او النتورك او شبكه العلاقات اللي ساعدتها انها تصير رئيسه NCDA، فذكرت رحلتها وانها بدات في ميرلاند، ولايه ميرلاند، وكانت هناك في اسوسيشن او جمعيه هناك ايضا خاصه بالتطوير المهني، ومن خلالها انتقلت وصارت رئيسه هذه الاسوسيشن، بعدين انتقلت الى مستوى وطني، ثم تدرجت في NCDA، كانت رئيسة أحد اللجان، ثم انتقلت وقالت ما كنت أبدا كامرأة من أصول أفريقية إني أصير أو إني أترشح للرئاسة، تقول لك زملائي هم اللي خلوني أو دافعوني إني أطمح وأصير إني أصير رئيس وزير الدم، وهم اللي صوتوا لي وصارت رئيسة NCDA، رغم إنها كانت أبدا ما كانت حاطة شيء في الاعتبار. وطبعا ذكرت الأستاذ أحمد كثير في الموضوع هذا، وأنه واضح أنه قاعد يزن عليها في موضوع الأشياء الدولية هذه، فيعطيها الف عافية. ثانك يو دكتور لكيشة. رندا، سؤال لك. انت عايزين نعرف مين السبورت اللي كنت النتورك اللي حولك فعلا اللي كانوا يساعدوك دائما ترجعي لهم في موضوع التطوير المهني. هل لعبت المجتمعات او شبكه علاقات دور معك ولا انت لوحدك؟
انت بتسال ايه اللي حصل معايا كسبورت او كسند او مين ساعد من بدايتي في المجال ده؟
على كيف بس يعني اي شيء له علاقه بانه هل في ناس كانوا حولك ساعدوكي شبكه علاقات ساعدتك اي شيء مش اي شيء؟
بص خليني اكون واقعيه معاك. هو اللي حصل ان البدايه دايما بدايه من عند شخص تمام مد ايده وساعدك تمام واحنا عارفين مثلا تمام. فهو دي كانت البدايه مع احمد. فالمهندس احمد مصطفى من ساعه ما انا عرفته من 10 سنين تمام. كان هو طبعا السند الاول للامانه، وهو عنده المقدره انه يستخدم ضميره بزياده قوي انه يقدر يساعد كل اللي حواليه بما يفيد الاخرين بالمقام الاول. لما بدات ادخل مجال التطوير المهني جالي برضه نوع من سبورت من اهلي تمام، الناس اللي حواليا ان هم كانوا واثقين ان انا هقدر اادي واعمل حاجه معينه. في حين دلوقتي ان احنا عندنا انا زوجه وام وبشتغل وظيفه يوميا من 9 ل 5 5 ايام في الاسبوع وبشتغل في مجال التطوير المهني. توزيع الوقت والمجهود وان اللي حواليا يتحملوني ويتحملوا الضغوطات اللي موجوده عليا وتقصيراتي اللي موجوده، ده مجرد ده يسمى بان هم بيساندوني. هو ده السند الاول بصراحه. ولكن طبعا زي ما قلت في الاول انا بشكر المهندس احمد مصطفى 10 سنين ومكملين وان شاء الله يبقوا عشرات ثانيه بعد كده ان شاء الله. Now he was asking me about what kind of support or who did support me in the field of career development. So I mentioned that the first one who stretched out his hand to help was Ahmed Mustafa, and that was 10 years ago. And ever since, he never stopped his support, to be honest. On the other hand, since I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and I have a steady job, a desk job, or office job, as you call it, 9 to 5, 5 days a week, along with the career development, practicing aside, so it's really hectic. Therefore, to appreciate the support I receive from my husband, my parents, my kids. Thank you so much. شكرا يا باشمهندس.
Dr. Lakeisha, maybe this is the last question about NCDA, because people are so curious about that. So then I will ask you some other question not related to NCDA. But people are asking, because now with this conference, a lot of experience were shared during the conference. We met different people from different countries, and people would ask if there is a role that NCDA might plan to have in migrating all this experience from different Arab countries and having it shared and benefited from other countries and also other regions. Will NCDA play a role in sharing all these experience and all this expertise, or it's something that can happen?
Sure. So a little bit of what we do in the future is driven by who the leadership is. So we switch presidents every year, right? So I get 12 months to make an impact. So one of the things that I want to do, and Ahmed does not know this yet, but you know we had the international reception at the conference because Magdalena from Canada is on my committee. So I pulled in international folks for my conference committee. We're going to have an international reception, and I would love for Ahmed to share some of this, because I think that this is really important. Our Canadian friends are coming to our conference, and we want them to share as well. And I am trying to do what I can do to be as inclusive as possible, not just from the fact that NCDA has members from different parts of career development. You know, my work is higher ed versus somebody else's work with students, children. So we're trying to pull in all those diverse pieces, right? As a president, my vision is global. I, through my global networks, see the support of professionals globally, not as just supporting our profession, but as changing lives around the world. Because the more every country decides how to build up this profession, how to support job seekers and students, the more people have access to building lives that are meaningful. But that's my vision. So in the fall, my hope is to take what I have done, this report that I'm going to come up with, and to convince the board to integrate an international vision into our strategic plan. Not everybody is with me, okay? And this is the hardest part I've had to explain to Ahmad, is not everyone is with me. However, I think I've done a good job of explaining to them it's not even really just about NCDA coming here, it's also me learning from you all. It's not just about the United States and what we're taking, it's learning from you all, and it is changing lives globally. That is really what I believe in my heart. So I think I have enough clout that I have convinced them that we need to now have a part of our strategic plan that is focused on our international outreach. 14% of our membership is international. We have many, many trainers now around the world. We need to support them. We do. What it will look like, though, I don't know, because it's not just me making the decision, right? It's a group of us. But what I saw in our meeting last week is they agreed with me. They said we will accept your report. They liked the solution that I brought, but they were not ready to vote on it. They said we will make decisions this fall. Now, what I encourage Ahmad to do, and any of you who communicate with other people on the board, is you have to say to them, talk to Lakeisha, listen to her plan, so we don't lose the traction that we've made, right? I've had a lot of time talking to Ahmad and his committee, and I'm trying to share that, but the more of us that say it, the better. But I really do feel that you are going to see more. It may not be what Ahmad put out, it may not be what I put out, but I think we're going to be a step closer, yes.
How can we reach the board?
How can you reach the board? I think in a couple of different ways. I think writing letters to NCDA headquarters addressed to the Board of Trustees to tell them what you need. Because a lot of you have reached out to me, which is great, but again, I'm one voice on the board, and I am one of the people on the board that's very passionate about this. The reason I'm reaching back to the Brain Trust is that I have learned that there were some past presidents who were also cared about this, but their ideas were not accepted. So write letters. The second thing is if you can come to our conference, you come to the conference. The more our numbers grow, the more of you that join NCDA, we can't ignore it. Okay?
That's a good plan. أنا أسأل دكتور لكيشة عن مشاركة التجارب والمعارف اللي موجودة في الدول العربية فيما بينها وفيما بعضها، وأيضا ممكن مشاركتها بشكل دولي. فتكلمت عن جهودها في أنها فعلا تحاول أنها تركز بشكل عالمي globally أكثر من أنه والله فقط أشياء محلية في الولايات المتحدة. وهي قاعدة تسعى بهذا الشيء، وذكرت برضه جهودها مع أستاذ أحمد بهذا الموضوع، وقالت إنه هي طبعا هي رئيسة بتكون مدة سنة واحدة فقط، 1 year only، مدة 12 شهر هي رئيسة، وبعد كذا بيجي أحد بعدها، فيقول قاعدة تسعى بقدر المستطاع من 3 سنة إنه تكون رؤيتها إنه نحن إنه NCDA تكون عالمية أو تروح للشيء العالمي. وذكرت نقطة مرة مهمة إنه قالت إنه تبغاكم أنتم كأشخاص تكتبوا للبورد، تراسلوهم، تبينوا لهم إنكم أنتم كثيرين، تبينوا لهم أنتم عندكم هذا عشان تساعدوها في المقترح او البروبوزل تبعها اللي هي قاعده تستعرض البورد، تقول دور وصوتكم بيلعب دور كبير، وتقول لكم احضروا المؤتمر ايضا عشان نشوف انه فعلا في اشخاص انترناشونال من دول مختلفه، وانه NCDA ممكن تسعى انها تخدم هذول الاشخاص. Thank you, Dr. Lakeisha, for this. I have a question about, I see from people online, they want to ask you this, and maybe Ms. Randa after that, the same question. They are asking about what is the role of the career history of the family impacting the students in selecting their field of major, and how would you handle that as a facilitator?
That's a great question. So in America, because there's so many different cultures, it really depends on your culture. So in America, I would say, for instance, my Asian American students, the family plays a great role in choosing what they're going to do. You have to make the family proud. You choose your career path based on what your parents also accept. I think that many who are white or African American and grew up in America, born in America, as a citizen, you choose what makes you happy. The difference, however, is that depending on what socioeconomic status you're at, you also choose what makes you happy, but in some cases you may choose what gives you greater access to money. So a lot of my students will come and they'll say, I want a career that's going to help me get richer. That is their goal, because they're coming from a lower income family and they want to now be at a different socioeconomic status. The college that I work at, we deal with a lot of that. So our students are what we call first generation, meaning they're the first person in their family to go to college. So they're changing their family. They're making decisions really based on being able to take their family from one level to the next level. The students who come from a higher economic status, they tend to choose the careers that have more status, the doctor, the lawyer, government work. And then we have some students and some job seekers who may have to choose just really based on location. They may have to choose based on their ability. So there's no one way to choose a career in America. It really is based on your culture, where you come from, how much money you have, and the access you have to education.
Thank you so much. السؤال هذا جاء من الدكتور مايف العوف من السعودية. كان يسأل الدكتور لكيشا ايش دور التاريخ العائلي المهني في الإرشاد المهني لطلاب المرحلة الثانوية في اختيار التخصص الجامعي والمسار الوظيفي. إجابة الدكتور لكيشا باختصارية يعني إجابة بطريقة جدا رائعة، تقول إنه في الولايات المتحدة والحالات اللي واجهتها مختلفة باختلاف الثقافات. في بعض الاشياء تجدها عامه عند بعض الثقافات اكثر من اخرى، تكون مثلا على سبيل المثال للنصوص الاسيويه ربما يميلوا الى انهم يكونوا يعني يتبعوا او يكون العائله كذا فيها تسعى انه تفخر بابنائها انه يكونوا نفس مسار ابائهم وامهاتهم على نفس الطريق، بينما انهم الامريكان البيض والامريكان اللي هم من البشره السوداء تقول انهم هم عندهم اكثر شيء انه ايش الشيء اللي يجعل الشخص سعيد. في بعضهم عندهم معايير مختلفه من ناحيه انه والله ايش الموقع اللي تشتغل فيه، لو بعيد او قريب او مع ذلك، ومن هذا المكلف فتقول باختلاف الثقافات يختلف دور العائله، لكن هذا هو الشيء العام، الاجابه العامه اللي هي ذكرتها في هذا الموضوع. استاذ رندا، نفس السؤال، ما دور التاريخ العائلي المهني للارشاد المهني لطلاب المرحله الثانويه باختيار التخصص الجامعي والمسار؟
نفس الشيء، هو وجه مشابه برضه، يعني نفس ما قال الدكتوره ماثيوز، نفس الشيء بيتم موجود عندنا في الدول العربيه. هو العيله ليها تاثير تمام على الاطفال او على اولادهم علشان يطلعوا زيهم او يطلعوا الحلم يكملوه بتاعهم، او لو احنا هنتكلم على ايه الوظائف الموجوده في العيله وتاثيرها على الاولاد في سن المراهقه او الثانويه العامه عشان اختيار الكليه، ايوه طبعا موجود. هو علم النفس كده، التطوير المهني كده، قال ان بالفعل الوظائف الموجوده في العيله والمحيط القريب قوي في العيله، اسره وعيله وجيران والناس اللي احنا نعرفها المعارف، ايوه مؤثر جدا 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 طبعا في اختيار اولادنا للوظائف بتاعتهم او دراستهم الجامعيه بعد كده. فالشبه كبير قوي بيننا وبينهم، لان دايما الاساس واحد، نفس الشيء.
كيف تتعاملي مع هذه الحالات اذا كانت العائله مؤثره؟
الشغل هنا بيكون شغل تكامل ما بين اولياء الامور او ولي الامر وما بين الطفل. طيب الحل بتاعه ان لازم تبني فكره ان الاب والام يعرف ان لازم الطفل ده يشوف التراك بتاعه او الطريق بتاعه المسار الصحيح بتاعه مناسب ليه. نفس التوقيت احنا بنبين ايه المميزات الموجوده عند الطفل، سواء مهارات سواء شخصيه او نمط شخصيه، وبنعرف اكتر ولي الامر الطفل ده ممكن يتم التعامل معاه ازاي. بناء عليه النتيجه هتبقى يبقوا كما هو الحال ومفيش اي تغيير، نو تشينج، او في فعلا في نوع من التقدم او تبني الفكره او اسلوب تعامل احسن وافضل، ويتبنى الطفل طريقه اللي هيختاره تجملي ما بين الطرفين علشان نقدر نوصل في الاخر لنتيجه ايجابيه. لكن للاسف مش كل الحالات بنوصل معاها لحل مرضي او حل صح زي ما احنا شايفين.
I asked her a question. I want to ask her the same question because you mentioned Asian. They want to feel pride that their sons and daughters are following the path. So, if a case came to you or a client came to you, he or she doesn't want to go to that career path, what would you do as a counselor?
Okay, so which we do, so we have international students in my place of work, and typically we're never going to tell someone to debunk their culture, because I think that that's not fair. I think you have to take culture into consideration when it comes to career development. And what we always start with typically is career assessment. Right? So we're typically going to open you up to your options, because a lot of the times, and I think someone already mentioned it, students do not understand their options. So there really could be something that you have interest in that your family would support. So I think that that's the first thing we would say is let's just clear the slate. Let's not think about what we think we should be doing, but let's really start and do an assessment. So the assessments that we tend to use are what's called the Strong Entrance Inventory, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, Gallup Dependable Strength. So those are sort of our base assessments. So we sort of start off there and we look at the results. Now, sometimes the results might confirm what your assessment says goes with what your family is saying, and we dialogue about that. But sometimes your assessments clearly say that your interest in, and let me back up for a minute, when I use interest and not aptitude, not skill set, not personality to help students make career decisions, because the research shows that if you do what you're interested in, then you're motivated to succeed in that versus, oh, my personality fits it. So that's the base. So once we do that interest assessment and it does not agree, it does not coincide with your family, then we're going to have a discussion about what you want to do with that. So when we talk about diversity, I believe the client needs to make the decision. So then we're going to walk through, is there an opportunity for you? Is there a way you can explain to your family? Because sometimes the family doesn't understand the other options, right? So for instance, in the States, video games are very big. So we have a program for that, and the students come and they say, I want to make video games, and the parents say, no video games, not a career, right? So, the students horrified, the parents horrified, and we just slowly begin to talk to the parent and say, we've graduated students in this industry, this is where they get jobs, this is how much money they make, this is the job security. Now, sometimes the parents say, oh, okay. Sometimes the parents still say no. And when we get to that, we really say to the student is you have to weigh your family ties to your career decision and decide which is more important. So in America, we're very individualistic. Eastern cultures are more collectivistic. So when you come to America from an Eastern culture, many students who immigrate have to make a decision to follow the family or to follow themselves. Some decide to follow themselves, but many also do not. They stick to their family.
سأل دكتور لكيشة نفس السؤال، انه كيف تتعاملي مع الحالات اللي تجيكي اللي يكون تأثير العائلة قوي في اختيار التخصص وربما يأثر على الشخص، فقالت ان هي في كل الحالات تبدأ باللي هو أدوات قياس الميول، وتركز على الميول أكثر من أي شيء ثاني، أكثر من أنماط وغيرها. تقول هي تبدأ بالميول. تقول في كثير من الحالات إنه الطلاب والطالبات أنفسهم ما يعرفوا الخيارات المتاحة أمامهم، وهم يعني أصلاً ما يعرفوا البدائل أو الخيارات الموجودة أمامهم، فأدوات القياس اللي تفتح لهم المجال، تفتح لهم أفق إنهم يستوعبوا إيش المجالات الأخرى الموجودة أمامهم والخيارات الموجودة. تقول بناء على النتيجة تأخذ الخطوة اللي بعدها، إذا كانت تتفق مع ما يرغب به الآباء والأبناء فهي تتكلم مع الطالب أو الطالبة إنه هذه الميول وهذه الاهتمامات وما إلى ذلك. إذا كان عكس فهي تقول إنها ممكن تتكلم أو يصير في حوار بينها وبين العائلة حتى عن طريق الشخص نفسه إنه هذه الخيارات الموجودة. تقول في بعض الأحيان حتى العائلة ما يعرف في خيارات أخرى. وذكرت مثال هي الفيديو جيمز، الألعاب، إنه في أحيانا إنه مثلا يجي أحد يقول أنا أبغى أدخل هذا التخصص فاهله يقولوا له لا، طبعا صراحه قال لا، وقال نحن نجيكم ليش نسمع العائله، مع الاهل نشرح لهم عن هذه الخيارات وهذا المتاح وهذه المعلومات ومع ذلك فيها، فاحيانا يقولوا اوه اوكي معناه هذا الشيء موجود فنحن استوعبناه مع ذلك، واحيانا يعني انهم يتبعوا طرق اخرى. Dr. Lakeisha, then Randa, same question. You mentioned that in the United States, yeah, Dr. Lakeisha didn't understand that. You mentioned that career development is not fully embedded in schools, right? So a question came to us from Dr. Naif as well. He said, why or what is the importance of education activities in helping people or students to determine where should they go as a career path? Is it important and how is it?
So in the United States, career education is determined by the states and not the federal government. So every state can choose how important career development is. So for instance, our past president of NCDA, Dr. Sharon Gibbons, lives in South Carolina. In her state, every school counselor has to be certified in facilitating career development. In my state of Maryland, they do not. So it's very state-driven, and the way that we are trying to change that through NCDA is we go and talk to our government officials. So NCDA has a government relations committee, and in April, we're going to Washington, D.C. to do what we call lobbying, which is we go and talk to all the senators and the congressmen. We remind them that career development is an important part of growing up in America. So right now, it's not that it's not there, it's just different in all states and in every school system. But what I do think we need to do better in America is if your state has it, that really only means what we call K through 12, the little babies and students up until about 17, 18. Then if you go to college, every college has a different model of career development or career centers. Most colleges do have career centers. So what it looks like is as a student from age 5 to 17, you will get a different career experience depending on your state and how much importance your state has put on it. Then when you leave, if your state has, when you leave high school, if your state provides assistance with that separation and transition, you may get help choosing from college, military, or going to work. Typically, that's the 3 options after high school: college, military, or you go into the workplace. Now, when you go to college, then you have access to the career centers, and you get a deeper level of career. But we still have a lot of work to do to make it the transition easy for our students and consistent around all of the states.
أستاذ دكتور لكيشة والأستاذ برضه الأستاذ رندا، إنه ما أهمية الأنشطة التعليمية في تحديد التخصص أو المسار الوظيفي بالنسبة للطالب، وذكرت إنه الولايات المتحدة تختلف يعني دور التطوير المهني بين ولاية إلى أخرى، في بعض الولايات فيها مرشد مهني معتمد وفي بعض الولايات لا ما فيها، وإنه NCDA تحاول تكلم الحكومة إنها تحاول إنها تعزز أو تنشر دور المرشد المهني في المدارس، وذكرت بعض الأمثلة واضحة. أستاذ رندا، same question. السؤال انه ما اهميه الانشطه التعليميه في تحديد التخصص الجامعي او المسار الوظيفي.
مدى الاهميه احنا عارفين ان هو مهم جدا طبعا، تمام، ان يبقى في انشطه تعليميه تعزز اكتشاف او طبعا اكيد ده لازم اكيد، وطبعا كل ما بدأنا بدري كان هيبقى افضل. يعني يبدا في ابتدائي بانشطه تعليميه تعزز التطوير المهني للطفل نفسه او للطالب افضل ما يبقى في اعدادي او في ثانوي والى اخره. انما الجامعه ما هياش الحاجه الوحيده زي ما كانت دكتوره ماثيوز بتقول ان معظم الكارير سيرفيس سنترز او كارير ديفلوبمنت سنترز موجوده بس في الجامعات، وده مش صح. المفروض يبقى التطبيق بتاعه اوسع من كده وبدري عن كده. الانشطه التعليميه الموجوده متوفره حاليا، مثلا احنا هنتكلم على مصر، في انشطه تعليميه تعزز مجال او اكتشاف مواهب ومهارات الاطفال، ولكن هي ما زالت برضه جهود فرديه، والانظمه التعليميه مختلفه مثلا في مصر، ده مثال طبعا على سبيل المثال. فأيوة في أنشطة تعليمية موجودة، في أنظمة مختلفة موجودة، وتتبنى هذا المبدأ علشان نقدر نوصل للأطفال في وقت مناسب إنه يقدر يعرف هو رايح على فين. وده بداية تقريبا من سن في مصر من سن 6 سنين، سن حضانة.
شكرا سارة. I promised I wanted to ask about NCDA anymore, but I remembered something that I talked with some of my fellow members of NCDA. The question is that they have to pay for membership fees, and some of them were wondering about the price and what would they gain from paying that membership. We'll talk about in the Arab region specifically, because you know the price differences and the currency differences is huge. It's impacting a lot of people with that.
So what are the benefits of becoming a member of NCDA? The biggest benefit is that we as an organization have a research journal, we have a magazine where we discuss best practices, okay? The work that I do in my office, I like to see that I am on trend with what is happening around the United States, what are research-based practices. So because many of you are trying to build infrastructure and build up career centers in your services, that is the number one benefit, is learning the theoretical underpinnings of our industry, understanding all of the approaches to how to work with career decision-making, career exploration, employability, skill building, to understand what other schools, what other governments are doing, the states are doing around the United States to deliver career services. That to me is the number one benefit. The second is going to be all of our training and credentials. So if you look me up on LinkedIn, you'll see yada, 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 a lot of letters behind my name. But I really do believe in being equipped to do the work that we do. So I work in what we call urban education. I am working with people who have challenges to employment, people where it's not easy. So all of my training, much of it has come through NCDA. I am certified to teach FCD. I am a CCSP. I attend our webinars. I listen to our podcasts because that's really where I learn how to do my job. So that is very big. And then the last thing is everything we do right now to stay connected. We have free webinars. Now I know the time difference, but a lot of them are recorded where you can just go back and listen. We now have a podcast, which I showed you all 2 days ago, where you can hear the experts that may never come here, but you can hear them and what they're talking about and what they've learned about. And then I would say on our website, there are standards. If you're trying to think about, oh my goodness, what should my job seekers be learning? How do I use social media in the job search? How do I pick or choose a career assessment? We have all that stuff free on our website, just free standards of how to do the work that we do. And then last but not least, our wonderful, wonderful conference, right? If you can ever come. And then Ahmad's committee does their own GCC Global Career events as well. So there's so many, many benefits.
I realized something that Lakeisha you were talking, because you mentioned or listed great stuff, but I realized that because it's only in English, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
That's why maybe a lot of people, they do not know because they don't speak English. So would be there any translation or these kind of, or all these resources somehow in the future?
I think, so when we talk about translation comes with a cost, it's very expensive. But I think what we probably should do, the way forward, is once the board first decides if they're going to take my ideas or not, I envision if they take my ideas, different regions being able to take our resources and make them culturally appropriate or translate them for their population, or be able to not copy them but create their own versions, right? So maybe you don't release our journal here, but you do your own research and you build that off of what we are doing and use us as a model, right? So some of of it with expanding really boils down to cost. I'll be very honest with you with a lot of it. And I think some of it is going to be other countries telling us what they need, which is where we sort of are now. So when we look at Saudi Arabia, they were very specific with us with the curriculum of this isn't culturally relevant, this needs to be in our language, you know, this is what we need. When we talk about Taiwan, they're specifically telling us, we need you to meet with our government, we need you to meet with, we're meeting with the principals at some of their schools, and we need you to meet with some of our college presidents. So some of it is you all telling us what we need, and then letting the board work through. And this is what I've said to the board. I've said, listen, let's look at it financially, let's look at it and what these things mean, and then let's be honest back about what we can do. So my vision is not just that everyone in the MENA region join NCBA. My vision is that there's a way to have some sort of affiliate where you all can build your own, but we're connected. Because then that's going to be cost effective for you, because all of you can't make it over to Chicago, right? And all of us can't come over here. But if we can have a bridge, I think that's the place to meet the middle.
Thank you so much. Well, our time is up now, so we would like to thank Dr. Lakeisha. Give her a round of applause. وبرضه نشكر الأستاذ رندا. Great answers to tough questions. So
Actually, you're the one who did well.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. نشكرهم مرة ثانية. Thank you so much.